All right, so welcome. Thank you again. I'm Allison Scola. I'm the owner and curator of Experience Sicily. We are a small boutique tour operator that specializes in experiential tourism in Sicily. So here I am in the Mercato Antico and Ortigia in Syracuse with all the spices. Sicily has a lot to offer, and so the spices represent so much of the exciting colors and flavors that we can encounter there. So I'm going to do some polls tonight, and my first question is for you, and I'm going to launch the poll right now. And the question is, have you been to Sicily? Yes or no? So I'll give you a few seconds to answer the question, because that always helps me to understand who I'm speaking to and how much what's the population tonight on the call. So I know many of you have come from different places in terms of how you learned about tonight. So I'm really curious to hear. So 5 more seconds to answer the question. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the polling is going to be ending, and the results are about 52% of you have not yet been to Sicily. So that's exciting news. So that gives me a lot to work with here in terms of, what we can tell you tonight. So that's great. All right, so let's see here, back to the presentation. So once again, I am an Experience Sicily. We're a boutique tour operator. We do small group tours of 12 people maximum for traveling. So it's really nice because we can go to off the beaten path places, small family run trattorias. We can stay in characteristic inns. It's quite an extraordinary way to travel. We do custom creative itineraries for independent travelers. So if you and your husband want to go, or you want to take your family, we can do that for you to your budget, to your dates, to your interests. I also will design and lead for you a custom tour for a small group. So if you have a group of friends, 10 people, whatever you'd like to, usually under 20 people, family, reunion type of thing even, we can design a small group tour for you, again, according to your wishes and your desires and your budgets. And then I will lead the tour so that you can just enjoy being with your loved ones. We also do heritage experiences and heritage research. So if you have Sicilian heritage, then we'll research that for you, and we will then introduce you to the towns of origin or town of origin and set you up with experiences there. And even if we can find living relatives, you might even be able to meet some living relatives. That's kind of exciting. I will also do professional consultation on an itinerary that you are planning. So I know a lot of people enjoy doing their own research and planning, but it's a little tricky with Sicily. And so I can give you some insider tips, give you some tips on navigation. And I do that for a phone call fee. And then we can, work together to get your trip set up that you book yourself. I also do a Cannoli Crawl. I don't know if you know that, but I lead the Cannoli Crawl. It's a walking history and food tour in New York City. We just started up again last weekend, and it's fun way to spend the day. You learn a lot about Italian America, and it's a bridge to Sicily from New York. I also host a lot of other in-person gatherings now that we are starting to come out of isolation. We'll go back to some of those events in the coming months, and then of course online events about Sicily. And I write articles, and I have a blog every day, Facebook, Instagram. You can follow me on those platforms as well. So my family is from here. This is Capozafferrano. It's outside of Palermo. This is Evelina on my right, on my left in the photo, I guess, depending on how you look at it. And she is my partner, my cousin also, but we are Experience Sicily. So on the Sicily side, Evelina is there, my right brain, my right arm, planning everything alongside me. So I hear you in English as an American. I translate what you want to her, and she's there working all the deals and the logistics for us in Sicily. And here's just a picture of my family there from a few years ago on my birthday to give you an idea of how I am really rooted in Sicily, and I'm a real insider. So what about you? Do you have Sicilian heritage? I'm going to launch another poll to find out if you have Sicilian heritage. I'm curious to know, and I'll give you a few seconds to answer that question. And then while you're at it, I'm curious to know if you, go back. If you know the town of origin of your family. And if you do, I want you to write that into the chat, because I may not be able to read all those right now, but I definitely want to learn about them later, and I can read the chat afterwards. So write in the chat if you know what your family of origin is. By all means, please do write that in and certainly have a conversation, because you might find some paesani while you're on the call tonight, which is kind of cool, right? So I'm going to end the polling now. 4, 3, 2, 1, and 51% of you do not have Sicilian heritage, and 49% of you do have Sicilian heritage. So there you go. Here's the numbers. It's fascinating. So that's also great to hear. So half and half. I love it. We're going to connect people to Sicily either way. It's like I said, it's a wonderful way to learn about your heritage, just to go there. And I'm going to see if I can open the chat myself. Okay, Vittoria. Bagheria and Termini. My family's in Bagheria, actually. So that's great. Ali in Messina province. Okay, Gran Michele in Provincia di Catania. We are close to Gran Michele when we stay in Licodia Eubea for Secret Sicily, one of our tours in July. Frazzano and Mirto. Okay, I think I know where Mirto is. Is that Syracuse province, I want to say, or is it, I can't remember actually. Sortino, which is Syracuse province, and Marsala, right? So east and west there. Alia, Licodia Eubea. All right, Maria, so you have to come with me, Secret Sicily. We spend a whole 10 days in Licodia Eubea. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And let's see, I think one is Catania and Messina Bronte. Yep, okay, Bronte is beautiful. Of course, we know about the pistachios in Bronte. It's famous, world famous for its pistachios. Belmonte Mezzagnano, this I don't know, but Palermo, of course. So it's Palermo province, and Monte Lepre, which is Palermo province. All right, so we have a nice representation across the island in terms of your heritage. So that's great. And then those of you who don't have Sicilian heritage, we're going to make you Sicilian, right? You're going to feel like you're part of the family when you go. So let's talk about what we're going to discuss tonight. So one of the things I'm going to talk about, okay, someone's writing on the screen. I don't understand where that's coming from. So, okay. Let me see something. I cannot stop that, I think. I don't know why that's happening. All right, so let's see. Aaliyah. Okay, Aaliyah. Someone wrote Aaliyah. They're from Aaliyah. I get it. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the highlights of a Sicily tour. I'm going to talk about the when's the best time to visit Sicily, how best to navigate the island, an ideal visit length, making your trip remarkable. That's something obviously you want to do. And your introduction to Sicilian cuisine, so you understand that you have to go to Sicily, Hungary. That's what I say all the time. One of the things also we're going to do at the end of the presentation is I have a book by John Keehee, who's a friend of mine, who this beautiful book called Seeking Sicily, and I'm going to do a drawing of the names from who registered today and for this event tonight, and we'll see who wins the book. I'll get your details to send it to you afterwards. So now, why is this thing on my screen? Hold on a second. I have to stop because I think I need to screen share. Because this Aaliyah is not leaving. Someone probably has an iPad or something and they were writing it in. Okay, there we go. Okay, thank you. All right, so where is Sicily? Well, Sicily is the island at the toe of the boot of Italy. And so, it's important. Thank you, David. Thank you. So let's look at it in terms of the whole Mediterranean. So here it is in the middle of the Mediterranean. So what that means is that the influences on Sicily are huge from across this area of the world, right? So when you're talking about ancient times, so we're going to talk about the influences which really still are part of the island's culture and heritage today. So back in 735, 738 BCE, before Common Era, the Greeks started colonizing Sicily. Now we know that they were many, many centuries before seafaring people and therefore going to trade in Sicily, but they had never gone to they never went to settle there until the 700s BCE, right? And then also we have on the other side of the island, the western side of Sicily. So the eastern side of Sicily has a huge Greek influence, whereas the western side of Sicily has an influence from North Africa and the eastern part of the Mediterranean. So in ancient times, it was the Phoenicians, and they came from where we call today Jordan and Lebanon and Israel, right? So in that area, and they were mariners, extraordinary mariners. And so they also had trading all over the Mediterranean. And then eventually they also decided to settle in Sicily. And so Sicily in ancient times was split in half. And we still see that today. So if you look at this set of maps from ancient times, and this is again 500 to 300 BCE, you can get a sense of the blue where the Carthaginians, and I mentioned Phoenicians. So think of the Phoenicians were like the British, right? They came from what we now call the UK, but they came from England and settled in the United States, or what was in North America at the time, and then became Americans. So that's the same thing when I talk about Carthaginians. They were Phoenicians, they settled in what became Carthage here, which is modern day Tunisia, and then they became Carthaginian. So by the time we were talking about 500 to 300 BCE, it's also called Carthage or Carthaginian. And then on the east side, we have the Greek Empire. So this is before the Romans, and you can see how powerful the ancient Greek world and how large the ancient Greek world was. So these things you can see when you talk about Sicily, Western Sicily is heavily influenced by the ancient Carthaginians, which is North Africa and the eastern part of the Mediterranean, far eastern part of the Mediterranean, whereas the ancient Greeks really had a big influence on eastern Sicily. So Sicilian history is vital to know in so many respects in terms of travel, because we can see the influences of all these different cultures on Sicily today even. So this is a timeline for you to get an idea of what we're going to encounter as we travel through the island. And that's the beauty of traveling in Sicily, is that you can go to ancient Greece, you can go to pre-human times, 3,000 years of human history we're talking about. So you can go to before our Western civilization history starts even. You can then encounter ancient Rome in Sicily. And then you can encounter medieval times, which, you know, there's a lot of confusion here in the middle between when Christianity becomes the official religion of the Roman Empire, but then you've got the Vandals, the Goths, the Ostrogoths. These were like the barbarian tribes that came from the north that we hear about when we're talking about history of ancient Rome falling, right? The Byzantines, which we know when Rome was split in two, the Byzantine Empire was established in the eastern part of the Roman Empire. Well, the Byzantines they moved into Sicily and they owned Sicily for some time, and it was quite Byzantine in its ruling and in the way that they operated with the people. It was quite religious and an interesting period. Actually, we don't know too much about, because the Arabs came in around 827 and they took over in a very positive way. Their influence on technology, on agriculture, on so many things still today is apparent in Sicily, and Sicilians will tell you that they're very proud of their Arab heritage. In 1061 or so, the Normans came and with the blessing of the Vatican came to push the Arabs out. But what happened was the Norman kings were quite forward thinking. They understood what the Arabs had brought. They understood also that there were still a lot of Greeks and Byzantine Greeks around, and they needed to incorporate all of these cultures that were the mix of Sicily together to create a very interesting kingdom. And so we have this wonderful Renaissance in Sicily prior to the Florentine Renaissance, which we all know about. In Sicily, 200, 300 years before the Renaissance up north, there was an incredible Renaissance, and that is because of the multiculturalism. And we'll see that in Palermo a lot. So this is, again, you're going to see remnants of all this history as you travel through. Then we have marriages, etc. Spanish come in, and basically for 400 years, we had a Spanish empire in Sicily. And then in 1060, Garibaldi arrives and in Marsala with his 1,000 red shirts, and then he is unifying the Italian peninsula. And that's a whole other story for a whole other day. So I hope this gives you a great idea. Enough of that, right? Let's go. Amoni is Sicilian for let's go. And a lot of times people ask me, When you go to Sicily, can you speak Italian? Can you speak English? Do you have to know Sicilian? You don't have to know Sicilian. If you happen to know Sicilian because you grew up speaking in your house, you can try and speak to Sicilians in your Sicilian, but a lot of times your Sicilian is frozen in time because Sicilian does exist. It is a living language, but it's a language spoken at home. So I don't speak Sicilian. I understand it a lot because I've studied song in Sicilian, and my grandmother spoke Sicilian, but I don't speak Sicilian. I speak Italian with all my colleagues, and anyone who doesn't know me, they're going to speak to me in Italian. There is English spoken in Sicily, not as much as you'll find in Northern Italy, and that's why it helps to go on a guided tour or with a company like Experience Sicily to help you navigate your trip, because there's a lot of Italian spoken and not a lot of English. But if you, like I said, if you want to try to speak Italian, I highly recommend it. It's a beautiful language, and also it's a great way to travel, is to go by studying. So here is modern day Sicily. This is what it looks like. So you may have heard of Taormina. This is one of the main resort towns in Sicily. Many of the cruise ships will stop in Messina. If you're doing a European or a Mediterranean cruise, for example, you'll stop in Messina for a day, and you can take a day trip and do Taormina or Mount Etna. Mount Etna, you might be familiar with, is a big volcano. It's an active volcano, the most active one in Europe. Not to be frightened of. We know all the time what she's thinking. She tells us what's on her mind all the time. So unlike Mount Vesuvius, which is in Naples, where Vesuvius likes to keep his information under his cap, literally, we don't know what's on his mind. We always know what's on Etna's mind. She's always telling us, and we call her Mama Etna. And then you might have heard of Siracusa. You might have heard of Noto because of Chef Stable in Netflix. Of course, Palermo is here. Cefalù is another well-known place. Agrigento. We're going to take a trip around the island right now. So here it is. Here's a look at the island in terms of a tourist postcard, right? So this is going to be our map that we're going to work from today. So again, you have this, fun look at the island, and we're gonna move through it. So I have another question for you. Sicily boasts how many UNESCO World Heritage Sites? So I'm going to launch a poll to see if you know the answer to this question. So you have one choice here, and maybe 9, maybe 5, maybe 7. I don't know. You tell me. Do you know how many World Heritage Sites there are in Sicily? I will tell you a hint. It is the Italian region with the most UNESCO World Heritage Sites. So don't let anybody tell you anything else, because Sicily has the most UNESCO World Heritage Sites of any of the 20 Italian regions. So I'm going to give you a couple more seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1 to get your answer in. And I'm going to end the polling, and let's see what the results are. So a lot of you said 9. Okay. And some of you said 7. Well, the correct answer is 7. Although you could bend the rules a little bit, because if you take a couple things that are like the Opera dei Pupi, the Marionette Theater, that is a heritage. It's recognized by UNESCO, but it's not considered a site. So there's a couple of those, like pizza was just recognized as a Neapolitan World Heritage food. So you could argue, you could argue with me that you were kind of right, but the correct answer is 7. So there you go. So let's see, what are those heritage sites? Well, I'm going to take you on a trip, and you're going to then tell me which ones which are, right? So here's some highlights. So we're looking at Valley of the Temples. This is actually the first World Heritage Site in the entire world that was named a World Heritage Site. It is in Agrigento, and so Agrigento is there. If you can see the blue circle or the purple circle, right? So I can give you a tour of where we are. So Agrigento, Valley of the Temples, you're looking at the Tempio di Concordia. The Tempio di Concordia is one of 7 Greek temples, started being built in 600 BCE. So it's a 2-kilometer long site. Usually people walk about a kilometer to see 3 to 5 of the main temples. So it's quite beautiful and extraordinary. You will see some of the most incredibly preserved temples here in Sicily, Greek temples that is, versus in what we call Greece now. It's important to know that Sicily was Greece in ancient times, right? So again, there's Agrigento. Another place that I want to tell you about is the Roman villa of Casale. This is a highlight. So this is a Roman villa that was built in between the 3rd century and 4th century AD, or the Common Era, okay? And the thing about it is that it has these incredible mosaic tile floors. So if my memory serves, it's something like 43,000 square feet of mosaic tile floors. And one that you're looking at the moment is known as the Bikini Girls. It's actually the room of the 10 maidens. And yes, they are wearing bikinis. This is our first documentation in fashion history that the bikini existed in the 4th century Common Era, right? So this is one of many incredible mosaic tile floors that we know a lot about Roman life, ancient Roman life, from this particular villa. And it is in Piazza Marina, which is here in the center of, kind of in the center of Sicily there. So you can see where you are. Now, Mount Etna, look at that. So in the foreground here are pistachio trees. We had someone mention they had family heritage in Bronte. Well, these are pistachios, and I am standing in Bronte when I took this photo. It is May, so there's still snow on Etna, but look at her. She is quite big. And when you're in Eastern Sicily, Etna is everywhere. So here is Etna, if you want to know where her placement. It is magnificent. It is big. And it is technically not a mountain, but a volcano, right? So then we're traveling to Palermo. We're going to the west side of the island. We have Monorail Cathedral. Look at these incredible mosaic tiles. That you'll see a lot of this theme of mosaic tiles, right? So this is the cloister of Monorail Cathedral. It's quite extraordinary to visit. This is Cefalù, the Duomo in Cefalù. In the foreground, we have Baroque, and in the background, we have the Arab Norman, similar mosaic tiles. This is Christ Pantocrator at the asp of the cathedral. It's Il Salvatore, the Savior. So we have a different, very different picture of Christ from the Norman times. He is a Savior. Here is a picture of 2 lions from the Palazzo Royale, the Norman Palace in Palermo. So again, this is all mosaic tiles, and this is all, you know, it's a gold leaf in mosaic tile in that royal palace. It's quite extraordinary to see this inside up close. So this is Palermo. So that is, you know, 3 examples from perhaps a UNESCO World Heritage Site, right? So this is the question, your clues to pay attention over what I'm saying, like for the next answer in the poll. Here we have Catania. And this beautiful Baroque cathedral in Catania, in the center of Catania. This is the Basilica for Sant'Agata. Here she is. Saint Agatha is the patroness of Catania. And here is Catania. It's the 2nd largest city in Palermo. And that Baroque is very important. So we're talking about the Sicilian Baroque of the Val di Noto. So everything basically in 1693, there was a massive earthquake, and the whole of southeastern Sicily plain was shaken for days. It wasn't just one day, it was a series of earthquakes that happened over a course of many days and wrecked to the ground many towns. This is one of them, Ragusa Ibla. So after 1693, they rebuilt these cities and they created this beautiful architectural style called the late Sicilian Baroque. And here's an example of it. I'm standing in Ragusa Superiore looking at Ragusa Ibla in this picture. So here is Ragusa. Here is the southeastern part of Sicily. We have Noto is down here, Ragusa, also Scicli is in this area. So in Syracuse is nearby, and Catania. So this whole area in southeastern Sicily is part of, you know, that architectural style for rebuilding. Here's Syracuse, here's the piazza, so you can see more of the Baroque. On my left is the Duomo in Syracuse, which is dedicated not to Santa Lucia, who is the patroness, although she's very much celebrated inside of this cathedral. It's actually a cathedral for the Madonna. But here you see more of that Baroque style. Also, part of nearby Syracuse is this place called Pantalica. Pantalica is, and you can see these kind of caves. These are actually tombs that were dug into the caves of the Aeolian Mountains. And these tombs have existed for millennia, going back 12,000 years before Common Era. So this is limestone, and these tombs are the necropolis of Pantalica. Okay, so that's where this is, in this area. So we've been spending a lot of time in southeastern Sicily. And then the Aeolian Islands. Again, we're talking highlights of Sicily, right? So the Aeolian Islands are in the north part of Sicily. Here they are. There were 7 of them. This is not the only set of islands off of Sicily. We also have the Egadi Islands off of western Sicily. There's also down in the south, we have Linosa and Lampedusa, and also Pantelleria. And then Ustica up here north of Palermo. So there's a number of small islands off of Sicily. And I just did a post recently. I'm doing this kind of fun thing on my Facebook and also on Instagram, 52 reasons to love Sicily. And recently I posted that you can island hop in Sicily too. So everyone talks about Greece, island hopping, right? But you don't need to go to Greece. You can come to Sicily. Sicily has everything you want. So I hope after you see this presentation tonight, you say to all your friends, no, we just need to go to Sicily. Sicily has everything we want. So you can do some incredible island hopping in Sicily. Selinunte, this is another archaeological park. It's actually the largest archaeological park in Europe. It is huge. There are a number of temples, the ruins of a number of temples, and it is in western Sicily here. You can see where Selinunte is. And then, of course, we have Taormina, which is what everyone always says to me. I've been to Sicily, I've been to Taormina, because they've been on a cruise and they took the day trip to go to Taormina. Look at this Isola Bella here in the bay. And this is the sort of, I'm on the top of the cliff where most of the town is, looking down onto the coastline where some of the town is and some hotels are. And then the other thing that's so memorable about Taormina is also the amphitheater. And so here I'm standing in the amphitheater. You can see this was built, first the Greeks built it, and then the Romans. You can tell from the, if you're familiar with how the Colosseum was built, all of this brickwork and these art styles, this is from Roman period. So this theater is really a combination of Roman and Greek. And look at what you're looking at, Mount Etna. So if you can imagine while you're sitting there listening to a play, because back in Greek times and Roman times, you listened to a play, you could see Mount Etna erupting in the distance. It's quite extraordinary. And now today they still perform music concerts here, opera here. During the summer, the warmer months, starting in like mid-May or so, they perform wonderful, wonderful things. And yeah, if you've been to Taormina and you've seen something in Taormina, Jose Carreras, exactly. You can see Jose Carreras there. I had clients a few years ago and they saw the 3 tenors here. I saw Elton John in this theater for 3 hours with his piano. It was incredible to see Elton John in that format. So it's a fantastic way to also to travel, to say, oh, you know, so-and-so is going to be performing, because a lot of, you know, rock musicians, from rock musicians to opera musicians to pop opera, you name it, they want to play in Taormina. And so you can plan your trip to Sicily around one of these concerts. Or one of the things I like to do when you tell me your dates, I will often look and see what's going on in the theater in Taormina during their dates, and see if I can, you know, maybe entice you to do something. You might be surprised by what you could see in Taormina's theater. So again, here is where Taormina is. So we've really already gotten around the island a lot. And so now my next question for you is, which one of these things that I just spoke about is not a UNESCO World Heritage Site? So I'm going to launch this poll, and let's see if you know how educated you are about these particular sites. So again, I talked about Valley of the Temples and Agrigento, which is what we're looking at again. The Roman Villa of Casale, that's the cool, awesome Bikini Girls exhibit, right, of the mosaic tile floors. Mount Etna, that big volcano. The Arab Norman patrimony, Palermo, Monorail, and Cefalù. I showed you some of those mosaics there, and that particular Arab Norman style, which incorporates Byzantine and also Jewish culture and also Arab culture. There's so much going on there. The late Baroque towns of the Val di Noto, Syracuse, and that rocky necropolis of Pantalica. Is that a UNESCO site? The Aeolian Islands, are they a UNESCO site? Is Selinunte a UNESCO site? Is Taormina a UNESCO site? I don't know. So you tell me which of these things on this list is not a UNESCO site. And then of course, if you want to answer none of them are, you can answer that too. Naysayer. That's what I say. All right, let's see. Hope to see Il Volo there in September. Yes, that would be fantastic. Right, Jerry, I agree. Let's see what happens with everything going on. I think September is definitely going to happen. All right, so I'm going to give you 4 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1 to get your answers in. And let's share the results here now and see. Okay, so what is not a UNESCO heritage site? The Aeolian Islands has won as not being a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and soon after, Mount Etna. Well, I hate to tell you guys, but those are definitely UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The ones that are not are Selinunte and Taormina. So let's see if I can, let's see what we got here. So, right, so here's our answer. Selinunte and Taormina are not UNESCO World Heritage Sites. However, of course, they are wonderful to visit no matter what. So even with that, you have all these incredible sites. These are the highlights of Sicily, sort of the classic tour, right? But really, in the end, that's not going to be all the time what you remember. Of course, you're going to see Monorail Cathedral here, and you're going to say, oh my goodness, look at these incredible mosaic tiles. Again, this place has like 60,000 square feet of mosaic tiles or something. It's just out at 43,000. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head at the moment, but these are all mosaic tiles, right? So, but you know, you'll remember those, but what really excites you? And that's what I want to know. I want you to take a minute for me and write in the chat about when you travel. You know, vacation is vacation. Vacation is like, let's go sit on a beach. And you can certainly do that in Sicily. But I want to know, when you travel to Europe, when you're going to a place like Sicily, why do you want to go there? What excites you? Please tell me. So I see old churches. I see wine, of course, wine. There's a lot of wineries. Sicily is a major wine region. The whole island is a wine region. Sit in a piazza of small villages and absorbs local culture. Absolutely. That's the stuff. And if you speak Italian, exactly, it's wonderful. Tour Roman history sites. Well, the Roman Villa of Casale is incredible to do that. Love to find out about the culture and history of that place. Yes, culture and food, nature, flowers, right. Experience culture, sampling foods, local food, culture, art museum, performances, absolutely. These are all the things that really sort of excite you, get your emotion going. Local festivals, gelato, ricotta gelato, exactly, churches, people watch, eat, and imagine myself living there. Who wouldn't want to do that? I love that idea. Beaches, of course, and boat trips too, right? I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Food and wine, absolutely. So here we have, like, you know, the things that generate emotion. That's what I want to do for you when I have you on a tour with me, when I design a tour for you and your family and your loved ones. I want to let you see how people live. Yes, exactly. I want you to feel Sicily. So that's what we get into when I talk to you about booking your trip. Thank you for calories. Yeah, you want to eat everything. And that's why I tell people, say, what should I bring to Sicily? I say, bring an empty stomach, because you're going to be eating a lot. Seeing that it's an agricultural region, you're close to the food, and the food is incredible. Look at this. Here's Palermo. This is the cathedral. I'm on the roof of the Cathedral of Palermo, and you can see the mountains in the background over here on the left of the cathedral's spires. Here we have Zizza, which is one of the palaces of the Normans. It's an incredible place to see. So those of you who are into architecture, this is a really interesting place to visit. It's a little off the beaten path of Palermo, for, you know, the second layer of Palermo. Here's Cefalù, which is extraordinary for so many reasons. This is La Rocca, which is the big rock that backs up the town, and that Duomo we were talking about earlier. Okay, so my next question for you in the poll is, when do you hope to travel to Sicily, right? So I'm curious to know when you hope to travel to Sicily. So let's take some time. I think you could only answer this question once, so you have to choose. I'm sorry, you have to tell me, is it going to be this year? Is it going to be next year? When next year? I am hosting an Easter tour next April. I'm in the process right now. I just figured out the budget for it and what it's going to cost. And we know the schedule and everything. Alice is our local insider guide that's going to be with us the whole week. She's so much fun. We are good friends, and we are so thrilled. It's going to be in the town she grew up in, Caltanissetta, because during the week of Holy Week, you know, there's so many exquisite processions that go on during that Holy Week, during Easter. So it's pretty neat. So this week that we're planning, we're going to go to Palermo also. We're going to go to Agrigento also. We're going to be in Syracuse. We're also going to go to Piazza Marina. So you'll see Sicily through a lens. It's great because Caltanissetta, where we're hosting this, is in the center of Sicily. So our day trips can be right from there. And we're staying in an exquisite property in Caltanissetta. So you're going to get the best of both worlds when you do Easter with us next year. So please consider that. All right. So I'm going to do 5, 4, finish your entries, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's see. We're going to share the results. So a lot of you want to go this fall, which is such a great thing to hear. I'm hosting an October tour called Stunning Sicily. I'll talk about that a little bit towards the end. Easter, like I was just talking about, lots of you want to go in spring 2022, which is great. Spring is a lovely, lovely time to travel there. I'm hosting our May/June tour is called Enchanting Sicily, and it has a beautiful, again, we're doing a whole island, those 14 days. Summer of 2022, we'll be doing yoga in Sicily, Secret Sicily, which is in Licodia Eubea, where I mentioned earlier, because we have someone on the call with heritage from there. September, October next year, I've got a photography tour in early September. I've got a cooking and wine tour in September. And then, of course, Stunning Sicily again in October. So there's lots of opportunities for you to join me in Sicily. And then, of course, spring 2023, we start the whole schedule up again. And then fall 2023 is going to be another time for you to travel. This is great. So you can see on your screen what other people have said, and I hope you'll come with me because we always have a lovely time. All right, so next slide. Okay, so now you know the highlights, right? But then the question is when to go, right? When is the best time? And what we're looking at right now is Scala dei Turchi, by the way. I posted about this today because this is one of the most extraordinary natural sights you can see in Sicily. This is a shot I took in September. So you can see people are still swimming. They're climbing on these white cliffs. Those are actually people here and on the white cliff. This is what's called marl stone. It's a combination of a calcium and a limestone and some other mud and other other dirts and that kind of thing. But it's pure white. It's quite fascinating. And then you can see it pouring into the Mediterranean. It's called the Stairs of the Turks, because legend is that when the Saracens took over Sicily, they climbed those stairs, quote unquote. All right, so when to travel to Sicily. So I will talk to you about what your interests are. And certainly you already know when you want to go. Summer is a great time to go because you can swim and you can take boat excursions. And when does that mean? Well, you can start swimming at the end of May and you can swim until the end of October. So end of May, it's a little bit chilly, but the Mediterranean heats up. By the first week in June, it is lovely. I've been looking at photos of my friends in different parts of the island. They're already on the beach in southern Sicily. They're already wearing their bikinis. So here we are, May 20th, right? So that gives you an indication. Sometimes it can be cooler this time of year, but generally by the 1st of June, it is warm and a great time to swim. August, of course, everyone knows is the popular time for Europeans. I tend to stay away from doing tours in August because it's expensive and it's crowded. But of course, if you are on a schedule with school, etc., that may be the best time for you to travel. And I'm not going to say don't travel in August because there's amazing festivals to see during August. But there's also great festivals, like I was saying, Easter, the whole Holy Week has incredible things to see during Holy Week. Also, September has the harvest season. So there's grape festivals and there's chestnut festivals and there's the Bronte Pistachio Festival, which is usually the first weekend in October. October is full of porcini mushrooms and they don't really have leaves changing so much. Well, maybe a little bit in Messina province that is north of Etna, but generally it's still warm and it's beautiful in October. So you can really do a wonderful trip in October. So I also want to encourage you to think about going in the Christmas season. There are beautiful presepios, there are beautiful live presepios, there's beautiful Christmas markets during that time, but also January, February, March, there's wildflowers coming in. It's a little chillier for walking tours. It's wonderful. And the citrus is incredible to eat. The varieties of oranges is fantastic. If you want to catch the wine, the grape harvest for the wine, that would be September, depending on the region of Sicily, because again, there's a microclimates around the island. If you want to catch the olive harvest, that's going to be probably at the beginning of October and then the end of October. Beginning, if you want to eat those olives to see how that happens, but really end of October into November is when they're making the olive oil. They're picking olives for olive oil. So they're the same olives, you just leave them on the trees a little bit longer. So again, I would interview you, we'd find out when you want to visit according to your interests. Also, another advantage of like the spring, for example, so starting May into June through the beginning of July, is Syracuse has live theater, and we're going to get into that. So there's a beautiful theater season in the amphitheater in Syracuse, and so that might be a reason to go. Or in Taormina, like we were saying, that you could go to catch shows then. Navigating the island. Okay, so this is the big question. How do you get around, right? So the best way really to navigate Sicily, public transportation is limited. There are trains. It's not always easy. It's easy to go from Messina to Palermo. It's easy to go from Messina down to Syracuse on the train. But anything in between, to go from Palermo to Agrigento, you can do it, but it's not so comfortable. Buses are a possibility. Driving yourself is obviously a choice. Many people like to do that, although you have to have a thick skin a little bit, and I will coach you on how to drive in Sicily before you go. Manual transmission cars are primarily what's available. There is automatic, but you will pay extra money for that. And then, of course, we have our contacts of drivers across the island. So that is really most people who I book trips for, and certainly when you come on a tour with me, we have professional drivers driving you around in, obviously beautiful Mercedes-Benz and nice cars if you're a small, couple or two couples, or a group of friends, or then smaller vans, 9-seat vans, 7-seat vans, going up to what I do for the 12 people I do with my tours. Will have maybe a 16-seat or a 20-seat or 27-seat van spread out. So there's many ways to travel around Sicily. What's the ideal itinerary length? Well, of course, you will have constrictions according to your time and your jobs. Perhaps if you're retired, you don't. So ideally, I would say 14 days, 13, 14 days is great because you can see so much and you don't feel rushed. And that's when you can sit in the piazza and observe the people and their behaviors and just kind of enjoy the rhythms of the place while seeing a lot of things. 10 days is also a great opportunity to spend time. You have to move a little faster, but you can see a lot of the principal sites. If you have less than 10 days, let's say you have 7 days or 8 days, I would suggest picking one side of the island. You pick the east side or the west side, and maybe you can put Agrigento in the middle of either one of those itineraries, but I would suggest that you pick one side of the island so that you can really savor it. You don't feel like you're rushing through too much. And of course, I will work with you once I know your interests and your dates, then I will suggest for you how to do that, whether I'm consulting you or you're having me design your trip or you're coming with us. So, it depends on the time you have will depend on where I would recommend that you go. If you only have like 3 days, for example, 4 days, like you want to go to Rome and you want to go to Naples and then you want to do Little Sicily towards the end of your trip, then I would say pick Palermo or pick Taormina or Catania or Syracuse, and then spend your time concentrated right there, and do some day trips from one of those bases. So that would be my suggestion for the itinerary length. What kind of accommodations exist in Sicily? This is a question, of course, that many people ask. Well, there's everything from, seaside, rent a place on the sea. There's beautiful farmhouses, all different. This place here on the lower left, this is Villa Cefalà in Santa Flavia. This is one of my favorite properties. We stay here the entire week of Stirring Sicily, which is our cooking and wine tour. We use it as a base. It is near Palermo. It's an olive farm, and it's pomegranates, and there's jasmine blooming all night. It just smells, it's just gardens. It's just absolutely beautiful. And so that's an ancient villa, ancient meaning like 300 or 400 years old. And it has rooms where we stay in the villa. This is another place called Tenuta Playa in Scopello. And you can see this is really nice because everybody has an entry to their own room. So there's no hallways, let's say, to get to your room. So in a time of COVID, for example, that might be an option that you would appreciate. That happens to be a vineyard, and vineyards often will have accommodations. And so here is a group eating breakfast under the vines that they have, is under the breakfast in their beautiful terrace where they also have dinner. So there's a lot of options. There's also luxury villas, and here's one up on the upper right is this luxury villa, which is in Acireale, right on the sea. I stayed here with a family of 13 people for a 70th birthday celebration 2-week trip. It was incredible over Easter in 2019. So we can help you choose villas that are all kinds, many different rooms all over the island. There's agriturismi or agriturismo, agritourism, which is basically a quote farm stay. It's usually like an inn, what we call an inn. There's also a lot of apartments to rent, or with small kitchenettes kind of things, suites, and there's 5-star hotels and there's 4-star hotels. So we have a whole portfolio of different places we work with, and we go according to what your budget is and also where you are. So sometimes it makes sense to do the 5-star hotel. For example, Villa Athena, that is in Agrigento, sits right on Valley of the Temples. So you can wake up in the morning if you have a temple-facing view room, and you throw open your shutters, and you're immediately facing that temple that we saw, the Temple of Concordia, right from your room. Like, how incredible is that? It's totally worth the splurge to do that. So there is an option. So many, many different kinds of accommodations in Sicily. One of the things also I was mentioning is heritage research and experience. And this is one of my clients that I helped him find a living relative, and now is a friend for life in Sicily, in Sambuca di Sicilia. If you're familiar with Lorraine Bracco's recent television show on the HD TV network, she bought one of the, or two of the €1 houses, and reconstructed them, and that was in the town where Tom here, his family was from. So we can do that for you. So what are the things that sort of make your trip remarkable? Well, it is that communing with the locals. And one of the things I like to say is the sheep are local, and the goats are local, and so are the cows. So, but also interaction with real Sicilian people. And that's something that I love to find ways for you with local guides, with local insiders, that you have an opportunity to meet Sicilians. Even if they don't speak English, we find ways that you'll be able to interact with them, because in the end, what do you remember? You remember the emotion you felt. You remember that Aldo fed you flowers that were edible, and you've never done that before, and he took you through his garden just like your grandfather took you through his garden when you were growing up. Or Maria gives you a fresh baked bread at the bakery. These are things that you remember, you take home, the sensations of it, and that's what I hope to help you find. The markets. Here's Claudio making baskets in the market. He's also an herbalist. Here I am with Angelo in the market in Siracusa. The markets are incredible. Palermo has incredible markets. Ortigia and Siracusa has an incredible market. Catania is a famous fish market. And we can do walking tours and food and walking tours through the markets. Here's Eric enjoying, we don't know what it is in Palermo's market. I know what it is, but I'm not going to tell you. It's called fritola, and it could be anything. We do cooking experiences all over the island, different ones. If you have a specific dish you want to learn or you don't know, we'll figure out what's in season, and you'll cook it up with a local mama or a local chef. And some of you mentioned wine and wineries. Well, Sicily is a massive wine region from east to west. We have Mount Etna wines in the Etna region. We have the Nero d'Avola and Frappato, etc. in the southeast. And then we have Pericone, excuse me, with Pericone, Catarato, Insolia, Grillo. Western Sicily is one of the biggest wine regions in Europe. That is Trapani province. So there are wineries and wine experiences to be had all over the island. Like I was mentioning, you could go during the olive cultivation and olive oil making season and see how they press olive oil. We have farmers that we work with. You can watch some cheese making. Here's Baldo making ricotta and taste ricotta right out of the cauldron. I mentioned live theater in Siracusa. They perform ancient Greek theater in the ancient Greek theater in Siracusa between May and July. And this year they're extending the season because the last year didn't happen. So it's a wonderful, wonderful way to see live theater and incredible world-class performances. I mentioned boat excursions. There are, look at the sea. This is the color of the sea in Castellamare del Golfo. It's absolutely incredible. And Mario is my buddy in Castellamare, and you can go on a boat trip with him along the Tyrrhenian coast there to see the Lo Zingaro Nature Preserve, San Vito Lo Capo. There's some incredible coastal towns and boat trips to be had all over the island. Of course, Mount Etna volcano experiences. It's like walking on the moon. It's really incredible. Going into a lava cave, etc. Nature walking hikes. There's some beautiful hiking throughout Sicily, all over the island. Cava Grande is and then there's Pantalica. You hike through this. This is all in southeastern Sicily, what we're looking at. These are limestone. This is actually part of the African tectonic plate. So part of Sicily is part of Africa and the rest of it's Europe. And that's why we have lots of volcanoes and lots of earthquakes going on. But trust me, you're going to be safe. But beautiful, beautiful, off the beaten path towns, beautiful scenery, mountain villages, hidden corners. This is an incredible modern sculpture that is made by Lorenzo Reina, who's a sculptor who lives in the middle of Sicily, and he's a sculptor, and he took his donkey farm and made this incredible theater there and other such incredible artwork. You can hide. I like to say, get away from it all in the mountains if you want, just to relax. So there's that too. Just the incredible panoramas, incredible vistas. This is Etna. Look at the highway going through here. We're on the top of this incredible mountain, and Mount Etna is behind these clouds here. Actually, those are her fumes. There are castles all over Sicily. So there's so much medieval history and castles to be found. This is in Cacamo, which is outside of Palermo, about a half an hour. I mentioned festivals. We've got Sant'Agata in Catania. There are smaller ones. This is in Porticello, Madonna del Lume. There's St. Joseph's Day. There's Easter. There's Good Friday. This is Carnevale, Naturale, and Sciacca has one as well. So there's just festivals all year. Depending on when you want to go, we'll find you a festival to enjoy. Folklore, arts and crafts. There's beautiful ceramics. There's the Opera dei Pupi, which is the marionette theater I mentioned, is UNESCO recognized. There's art history and archaeology. So much incredible ancient art throughout the island and medieval art. Here we have some Antonio di Messina. We have this incredible artwork that was found under the sea, bronze from ancient times. I mentioned live music. I always try and incorporate live music into my tours. So when you're with me, you get some folk musicians for sure. Carnevale in Sicily, it can last for 2 weeks in Sciacca and in Acireale. It can last 10 days. I mean, they do days leading up to Fat Tuesday, basically, for Carnevale, and it's a lot of fun. They make these floats, and people are dressed in costumes. Mostly kids and people and adults do it too with their children. It's not the same intensity in terms of that dressing up as Venice, but the concept of it is like Venice. So I highly recommend. It's a lot of fun to visit at least one day if you're there in February or March when it happens, to go to Carnevale in Acireale or in Sciacca. Shopping, there is lots of shopping. Taormina is like the capital of shopping. Palermo has wonderful, wonderful shopping as well. And of course, there's lots of ceramics around the island. Caltagirone is a center of ceramics. There's just everything from incredibly beautiful handcrafted jewelry, to the ceramics, to the coral and shaka. So you name it, there's a lot of shopping. Okay, so I have a question for you. I know some of you, you might know me because of cannoli, because I am the chief cannoli connoisseur, I like to say, and I do the Cannoli Crawl in New York City. I want to know how many of you, or what do you think? Do you think cannoli are, quote, Italian, or do you think they are Sicilian? So tell me what you think, because I'm always curious to know what you know about cannoli. So, so we'll take a few seconds here to re-engage you and see if you know, are Italian, are cannoli from Italy, or did they come from Sicily? Let me know. Where do you think? Can you get a good cannoli in Naples? Can you get a good cannoli in Rome? If you're gonna have tiramisu, where are you gonna have that tiramisu? Are you gonna have it in Sicily, or are you gonna have it in Venice? That's the question. And we're gonna close the poll. So I have not fooled any of you. Yes, cannoli are Sicilian, and the Sicilian immigrants who came to the United States brought them to New York, and that's why we have New York style cannoli here. So come on the Cannoli Crawl, and I'll tell you all there is to know about cannoli you could never imagine to know. The next Cannoli Crawl is on June 5th. It's a Saturday. I usually do them on Saturdays, and the next one is June 5th. I just started up again last weekend, so I'm still I have to organize myself to do some more dates coming up, but definitely there'll be another one in June probably, and a couple in July, and then I will let you know about the fall as we proceed. But I'd love for you to join me on June 5th. You can go to cannolicrawl.com to see the registration and see what it's all about, for sure. So thanks for asking, Steve. I appreciate it. So let's talk a little bit about cuisine. I don't want to say wasting time on food. Who wastes time on food? But I want to get to your question. So I'm going to breeze through this, but let's just say you are in an agricultural place. So the amount of food and the diversity of food in this island, because of all those influences I mentioned at the beginning of the lecture, between the Arab influence and the Greek influence and the Roman influence and the French Norman influence and the Spanish influence. Can you imagine what kind of amazing cuisine we have? We have couscous. We have the freshest fish possible. There's incredible pastries. There's fresh macaroni, because did you know that pasta was invented in Sicily? Yes, there's documentation in 1100 or so in the court of Roger II. They were making macaroni in Trabia outside of Palermo. So, don't think that that Marco Polo brought it back from China. No, the Arabs actually started making macaroni products, and they were making it in a factory in Trabia back in the 12th century. So Angelo Braccatos for cannolis, New Orleans. Oh, that's a good one to know. Pasta alla norma is my favorite. Yes, pasta alla norma is this one down here on the lower right. It is fried eggplant with a very light tomato sauce, a little bit of basil, and then on top is salted ricotta. Salted ricotta, that's a classic pasta alla norma. And of course, gelato. And there is evidence that gelato was also created by a Sicilian, by the way. So we'll talk, we'll talk food when you come to Sicily. And this is caponata. If you come on the Cannoli Crawl, you'll also be able to have caponata. It's also savory food. It's not just cannoli. It's really a bridge to Sicily. So I want to introduce you to everything I can on the Cannoli Crawl. And we eat caponata, which eggplant is a base of this particular caponata recipe. Caponata can have the other day we were at Piccola Cucina, which is an excellent Sicilian restaurant in New York City. And that's where we have our caponata, and Benny, the chef, made for us caponata with a pepper base. And that's very common. Zucchini is common, tuna fish, swordfish. You can even make it with octopus. So caponata is a whole thing that we'll get into another time, but just know it's a sweet and sour agrodolce. So it's a bittersweet taste, and that tartness is what makes Sicilian food so fantastic. And caponata is the consummate dish for that. And again, here we have marzipan, we have the fresh fish, we have fresh tuna, we have pane con satay, seasoned bread, casatelle, which are these basically fried little calzones, maybe you could say, filled with sweet ricotta, swordfish stuffed, pasta con le sarde, which is pasta with sardines, granita, which we call Italian ice, but this is not Italian ice. And then of course, this does look like a breast. It is the Mina di Sant'Agata, Saint Agatha's breast, which we eat for her feast. So there's lots of incredible food in Sicily. You will never be hungry ever. So one of the things I do, my heart and soul is in, are the small group tours that I lead throughout the year in Sicily. I am the tour leader, and what I do is I'm your cultural interpreter, and I am your host along the way to meet the local people, to meet the local insiders, to meet the expert guides of the place. So if we go to Valley of the Temples, you will meet an archaeologist who works Valley of the Temples every day, who I usually know very well. I work with a lot of wonderful, wonderful people in Sicily, and I love to introduce you to them. Sicilians are so heartwarming, and the ones that I work with are so passionate about sharing this island with you. And so when you come with me, we have such a fantastic experience because of that. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing. So this October, we have Stunning Sicily. It is October 2nd through 14th in this year. That is the first tour that I'm going to be leading after the pandemic. I'm waiting a bit because I want Sicily to have time to return after being closed. So the private story is I was in Sicily for a month in February and March. Not many people know, I'm telling you now because it's in the past, but I went, and I went as a student. I went to study Italian for 2 weeks. That was how I got in. And then I really was there to see my colleagues and my family after a year of not having been there. It was so hard for me. So, but I did see the state of things. A lot of things, just like here, if you walk down the street in New York City, a lot of stores were closed. Restaurants have had the hardest time of anything. So my gut is October, they'll be ready and open for us, and it's going to be fantastic. I'm going to talk more about traveling there in a minute and all the details of that. I think intrepid travelers could go during the summer and even into September, but I'm going to tell you October is going to be 100%, they're going to be ready for us. So I'm inviting you to come with me in October for Stunning Sicily. And then after that, I have Easter in Sicily in April. I have our May, June Enchanting Sicily, which is a 14-day full survey of the island. We see so many of the UNESCO sites, and we get off the beaten path as well. It's fantastic. Wonderful spring tour. We get to go to that live theater in Siracusa. We're also doing yoga in Sicily with Cleo Mallon, who's a good friend of mine, who's a yoga instructor in Philadelphia. We were supposed to do an online yoga class tomorrow night, but she has some family emergency going on. So we're going to postpone that, but I hope you can come to another online yoga class with us so that you can meet Cleo and maybe come with us to do yoga in Sicily for 10 days next June. Here I am doing yoga in the Piazza in Siracusa. Secret Sicily in July in Lico di Eube. You're like, where is this town? How do you say that name? Lico di Eube is in the center of Sicily, not far from Ragusa. And we use it as a base. It's a town of 3,000 people. And this is a really interesting tour because my contact there, Carmelo, he manages a bunch of apartments and also a B&B in the middle of town. And so you as a guest stay in either an apartment or at the B&B. We all meet every morning for breakfast at the central bar, and then we go off during the day to do some kind of excursion together, and we come back in the evening. And like this picture shows, all the town is out every night, passeggiata, doing their passeggiata, their evening stroll down the Strada Lunga, the main street of town. And you get to know the locals a lot during Secret Sicily, life in a remote Sicilian town, I like to call it. They are so excited we're there. They're like, why are these Americans here? We're there because it's such a beautiful, fascinating place. And it's a great base to explore mostly Eastern Sicily and Agrigento. 10 days. It's a really well-priced trip as well because we stay in these apartments. It's not a tourist place at all. So look at that one. If you've been to Sicily before and you want something deeper, this is a great trip to go to Sicily using. I'm also pairing up with Don Toothaker, who's a professional photography teacher. He's based out of Boston. We're going to be doing September photography tour for 10 days in Boston, in Sicily. This tour is really off the beaten path, totally designed for taking photos, lots of slow days so that we have lots of time. The light is going to be great, and Don is a great teacher. So that's something for photography enthusiasts if you want to do Sicily by lens. And then in September, I'm also hosting Stirring Sicily, which is our food and wine trip. It's 1 week. We spend the whole week staying, like I mentioned, in Santa Flavia outside of Palermo. We use that as a base, but we get to Trapani. So we learn how to make couscous from nothing. We go to Agrigento and cook with Annalisa of Go Sicily and have a Sicilian mama experience. We spend amazing time with Giuseppe Sciurca, who's a great chef based in Termini Imerese. And we do a couple days with him and Valeria, his partner, and Nino Elia, who's here on the left in the orange shirt. He is my co-host. He is living in Lidditz, Pennsylvania. He grew up until 11 in Sicily, and he is a hoot, and we have a great time cooking. And Nino is my co-host because he's a chef, and so he really is the ambassador and the interpreter of Sicilian food and Sicilian cooking while we're there. And then, of course, we'll be back next October 2022 for Stunning Sicily. So that's what our tours look like for the next year or so. You can go to experiencesicily.com, and if you click on Tours of Sicily, or mouse over that, and you'll see the listing of the 2021 tours and the 2022 tours. I am still putting up all the details to Easter. That'll come up in the next couple days, and also to the photography trip is coming up as well. So those two things you're going to see coming up. So also, I hope you'll join me for some stateside events. I do a lot of online programming. For the past year, I've been doing that, of course. I'm hoping to do more in person coming up. And then, of course, the Cannoli Crawl. So let's see. Okay, all right, I'm just looking at, yes, well, we can talk about miles and all that stuff. So, so again, June 5th is the Cannoli Crawl, and more events will be announced. I also have a podcast and also a YouTube channel. So if you go look for the Experience Sicily YouTube channel, you can see some of the more in-depth archaeological stuff I've been focused on and talking about. So Amoni, let's go. What's the situation, right? Well, this is the big question. What is the situation in Italy? Tell me, can we go? Well, let's go. We can go now. Okay, so the story is, as of May 19th, yesterday, this is from the New York Times article from yesterday, the European Union agreed that it will reopen its borders to fully vaccinated Americans. So this is great news. You must have had your vaccination, either the Johnson & Johnson, the Moderna or Pfizer vaccine, because those were approved in the EU. You must have one of those vaccines and have had your last shot 2 weeks before you get on the plane, and bring with you your details explaining that you are vaccinated. Now, they are putting together, quote, a vaccine certificate there. We still don't have the specifics of what that document are, but if you bring your vaccination card with you, you can show that. Children who are traveling with adults who are vaccinated are not required to be vaccinated. That's a big question people have had. So that's good news. And the details of what this green certificate they're calling it, or the green passport, etc., vaccination passport, all this is still being sorted out, and we hope that the EU will have something digital in June. But this is a lot of countries trying to work out things, and everyone has their own objectives in terms of their economics and in terms of their own healthcare systems. So this is a very, we're going to have to be patient with them. But Italy has something on paper. It's a little, iffy, but certainly bring your vaccine certificate. Now, let me tell you about how to travel to Italy and avoiding quarantine. So I mentioned that I went, so I have gone in the past few months. I did take one of the Alitalia COVID tested flights. So what does that mean? So right now, they're kind of doing this every 6 or 8 weeks, right? So currently, these COVID tested flights have been approved through June 30th. So what that means is that Alitalia and / Delta, because they're partners, most of the flights are operated by Alitalia, however, they have specific flights from JFK to Rome, and eventually they're going to be opening a New York Venice flight, and then Atlanta to Venice. I think that's what that says. It's covered here. Yeah, and also I think there might be an Atlanta to Rome right now also on Alitalia. There are specific flights. When you go on the Alitalia website, you'll see it says COVID tested, and those are the ones that you want to take. That is if you're going through June 30th. This will probably be extended. American Airlines, starting June 1st, has, again, COVID tested approved flights from Rome to Milan, and United also will be starting up, I think in June, might be July, from New York to Rome. So what does this mean? This means that you will need a negative COVID test 48 hours before you board the plane. So you can take that test at JFK. I took it the day I was leaving at JFK. It's a little more expensive to do it there, but I was leaving on a Tuesday, etc. So it just made it easier for me to do it there and pay extra. And then immediately when you get off the plane in Rome, they're waiting. They have literally a whole corridor set up with lab technicians to take your COVID test as soon as you get there. And for those of you who are traveling on to Catania or Palermo, they'll announce who's transferring to Catania, who's transferring to Palermo. Come with me, and they'll expedite your testing so you can get through to your transfer. So negative test when you leave, negative test when you get there, also have been vaccinated, and then you have to complete this digital passenger locator so that they can do contact tracing with you in the event that someone on your flight ended up having COVID. They want to be able to contact you and then quarantine you. But the idea is that if you took these particular flights that are approved by the Italian Ministry of Health, you had all this testing, etc., then you do not have to quarantine for 2 weeks. And that's how I got in, and that's how I didn't have to quarantine for 2 weeks when I got there. So it works. Flying with a mask on is not ideal. Some of you may have already done it domestically, but you know what? The prize is at the end. Let me tell you, it's totally worth it. So then, of course, before coming back, the United States is requiring all people coming from international destinations to have a negative COVID test 72 hours before, within 72 hours before your departure. So that's something you have to organize yourself before you get on the plane to come home. They want to see that you have a negative COVID test, and they check it. Trust me, they check it. The amount of paperwork I had to fill out. So here we are at the moment you've all been waiting for. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, so I'm drawing a name to see who won the book. So Carol Hudson, are you on the call tonight? Carol Hudson, can type into the chat if you are. And let's see if Carol Hudson is on the call. If you're here, Carol, you have won the Seeking Sicily book. If I don't hear from Carol, I have a second person. Anyone else? Yes, Carol Hudson's here. Okay, Carol, I will write you an email. We'll correspond afterwards to get your mailing address so I can send you a copy of Seeking Sicily. All right. Now I have another one of these books to give out. So the second person is Camilla Caluzzo. So Camilla, I think you're on the call. I saw you earlier. You also have won a book by John Keehee. You're there. Okay, good. So you're either going to get Seeking Sicily or his other book, which is called, it's right on my bookshelf, Sicilian Splendors. So depending on what my inventory is up in my attic, I have to go check. But I have a book for you also, Camilla. So I will get your address as well. So congratulations to the two of you. Thank you so much for being here. And I highly recommend John Keehee's books. They're beautifully written, and it really gives you a glimpse, not even a glimpse, it really gives you a profound look at Sicily and all it has to offer. So once again, thank you so much for listening to me. I hope I answered a lot of your questions, but of course, I want to know your questions. So I'm going to click off of this share screen and open up the floor for your questions as long as it takes. I'm here tonight to answer them. You can type them into the chat, or you can go onto the camera, turn your unmute yourself if you'd like. I'm happy to hear from you and to share. Let's see, I'm just going to remove my spotlight so that everyone can be seen. So let me know what kind of questions you have. I'm sure there are lots of them because so many questions about, is it safe to travel now? What is it like, etc. Let me know what kind of questions you have.
How long is the Liquidia Eubea trip?
Yes, the Liquidia Eubea trip is, let me pull it up because I want to make sure I stay honest myself. It is called, where is it? Secret Sicily. It's in July 2022. It is July 15th to the 24th. So that is, I believe it's 10 days. I'm waiting for the page to load. 10 days and 9 nights. Oh, yes, there it is. Okay, sometimes it takes a little time for it to load. So it's 10 days and 9 nights. And again, it's limited to 12 people. So it won't ever be more than 12 people. It's always going to be 12 people and fewer. Any other questions about that, Linda?
No, thanks.
Sure.
Hi, Allison. This is Esther Giordano. I was wondering if this presentation, because I missed the first half of it, is presented anywhere else or being recorded where I can
Yes, I've been recording it and I'm going to upload it to YouTube. And you all, because you registered through Eventbrite, I'm going to send an email, a follow-up email with the link to the YouTube video, so you can go back and watch from the beginning if you'd like to, Esther.
Right. If I realize because I'm still at work.
Yes.
If I realized this, I said, oh, my cousin would have loved this too. And then maybe I'd get her to come with me.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, I'm so excited that you're coming, and I look forward to making that all official in the days ahead. So
Me too.
I can't remember which trip we were talking about.
The small one, we're going to the local town.
Right, Secret Sicily, the one that Linda was just asking about. Exactly. Yeah. Yes, that's right. That's right.
Cannoli Tour.
What's that?
I'm doing the Cannoli Tour.
And you're doing the Cannoli Crawl. Fantastic. Yeah. So I get to meet you in person in New York City. That's terrific.
Yeah, because I met you at a travel conference before everything blew up. But
yes, the New York Times travel show.
Right. So I look forward to meeting you again. Thank you.
Me too. Well, thanks for tuning in tonight. And yes, you'll get the link to the YouTube video of this so you can share it with your cousin. Thank you.
Allison, Camilla qui.
Hello, Camilla. You're in the dark.
Ciao, ciao. So when do you think you can, for the Stunning Sicily tour, will you be able to give us a list of the hotels, especially Taormina, because I may be going earlier. I'm coming from Rome. I'm not sure. My other question is, do you think this quarantine situation or the COVID testing, again, nobody knows, but do you think that's still going to be in effect in October?
So to answer your first question, we're staying at the Grand Hotel Miramar in Taormina, and I will, if you tell me.
Is that upstairs? Is that on the?
Yes, it's upstairs.
It's upstairs. It's not down in the Giardini or, okay.
No, it's right in Taormina in the main town, and it's actually right near the funivia. What do we call this? The cable car. I can never remember the word in English. And what I can do is I'll book your room for you, and we'll bill you for that, so that you stay in the same room. We set everything up for you, so when you know when you
all right. So I'll see. I'm going to see when I'm getting there and what I'm doing. Okay.
Yes, right. So that answers your first question, and also tells everyone, the Grand Hotel Miramar is a very nice hotel right on the cliff with beautiful views. We stay there because the price is really reasonable and the location is really reasonable. It's one of the hotels we recommend in Taormina. Of course, there are beautiful hotels in Taormina. The prices can be 500 euro to 1,000 euro a night or more, or reasonable. So we stay at a more reasonable hotel, because otherwise the cost of this trip would be too much for most of us. So there's that. So that's a tip for you all. In terms of what the COVID testing situation is going to be in October, it's really hard to say. But what I can tell you is this: I'm monitoring every day the numbers in Italy and in Sicily in terms of the rollout. And up to this point, up to this past week, it's been very slow in terms of the vaccination rate, because they had very little supply of other dose, like for example, AstraZeneca, which is a European company, was the main vaccine they had, and a lot of people we're having fear of AstraZeneca because a few people had thrombosis and died from it when it was first released in March. So you can't blame a lot of people, especially Sicilians. They're very superstitious. So they were like, I'm not doing AstraZeneca. So nobody was going to get the vaccination. Like they had these like mega sites that were like, you don't need an appointment, and nobody would show up because they didn't want AstraZeneca. Well, now that they have Pfizer coming in and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson, tens of thousands of dosages a day are coming in. Now people are getting vaccinated, so the rate is going up. So as of yesterday, 14% of Sicilians had 2 doses of a vaccination. 24% had at least 1 dose. So things are moving much faster now. They're also vaccinating everyone from 12 years and up starting this weekend there. So what does that mean? That means that the numbers are dropping quickly. And so over the summer, we're going to see those numbers drop. And I think that by the time October comes, we may not have to have COVID tests to get on planes. We might just have to have proof of vaccination. So I'm hoping it would be nice. I can't, I've only taken 3 COVID tests this whole time, and 2 of them were so I could travel. And 1 was when I came back. So 1 was before I left, 1 was when I got to Rome, and then 1 was when I came home. Actually, I've had 4. And then to go back to the States, and then 2 days after I got home, I took another one, and that was it. They're not pleasant, we know. So hopefully we won't have to.
But I didn't understand. You had it at the airport before you departed?
Yes.
Oh, so you went before you departed, and then by the time you got to Sicily, they had the results, so they had the testing.
No, I mean, I went at JFK, like I went 5 hours before my flight, and I took it in the terminal 1,
Okay.
as a lab right there. And I paid $150 to have my COVID test.
Okay.
And I had my results in 15 minutes. So that way I could get on the flight that afternoon.
Perfect. Okay.
Right. And so the
Got
same
it.
thing was sort of true, when the whole time, when I got to Rome, you get off the plane and they funnel you into the quote laboratory to take a COVID test. And within 20 minutes, your results. And then they let you go through customs. So it's really efficient, and you don't have to pay for that one. It's kind of included in your flight. Italy's paying for that. And then I had to pay for one before I left from Italy because the US wanted it. And then when I came home, a couple of days after I came home, I took one because I live with my husband and I wanted to make sure that I was okay. So everything was good. So, it's not fun taking a swab test. So hopefully we won't have to do this so much anymore.
Okay.
By October. Let's see. Can you please
Thank you.
provide the prices? Thank you. Will you be providing your business card or email here? Yes, I will. I will throw up another slide at the end before I sign off, but certainly you can find me at experiencesicily.com, and I will send out an email probably Saturday morning, might go out. It's going to take me a little time to upload the video and get the email together for you, but I will send a follow-up email with a lot of details of the tours and certainly how you can get in touch with me. So the prices of the tours are all different according to the tour. So there's no set easy answer to that question, since I have like 7 tours on the docket right now. Every one of them is different. And the nice thing about that is because I try and offer different prices so that, for example, like Secret Sicily is probably the lowest price for 10 days because we stay in apartments. They're not fancy. They're not fancy apartments. You're walking up 3 flights of stairs a lot of times, except for the B&B, which tends to not be 3 flights of stairs. I will pick an apartment according to what your abilities are, by the way, because I get to know everyone really well. But the point is they're not luxury apartments. Now, when we go into Stunning Sicily, for example, or Enchanting Sicily, these are more high-end, 4-star, 4-star superior properties. So the prices reflect that. So Enchanting Sicily, for example, is a more expensive trip because we're staying in more expensive properties. And also it's longer. Yes, so Susan, yes, we'll talk about Alitalia. Let's talk about that. But certainly, we could have a phone call and I can help you with Alitalia booking. I hope that answers your questions about the pricing. So you have to just look on experiencesicily.com under the tour link, and then each tour will have pricing. I'm still putting up the Easter 2022 price, which I figured out earlier today, but I have to actually put it up on the website. And hopefully by the time I send you the email follow-up, that will be up online. And then also the photography trip, I'm still sorting out the details of that. But Don and I know what the itinerary is, but the price needs to be sorted out still. So let me see. Anyone else have questions I can answer while you're here? Come on.
If you're vaccinated, does the testing still required if you're both vaccinated?
Yes, right now, Italy is requiring that you still do the COVID test prior to leaving, and when you arrive, even when you're vaccinated.
Can you talk a little bit about there's a cooking, is that a week long?
Yes, it's 8.
Now, my wife wants to cook and I want to do something else, but is it a sort of a mix of a few? Can you talk about what goes on?
Yes, of course. Yes, that trip is called Stirring Sicily. And the nice thing about that trip, David, is that it's not all food. Well, it's food, but it's not food and cooking all the time. So you will get a lot out of it yourself, even if you're not participating in all the cooking. So there are 3.
Like to eat.
Yes, you'll eat, exactly.
I can tell you. So.
Yes, and you'll enjoy eating, and it's fun, cooking, how it is. People who cook, it's like being family. So pretty much within the first day and a half that we're all there together, we just are immediately this big happy family. And we have 3 hands-on cooking classes. So we do 1 in Trapani, 1 in Agrigento, and 1 in Palermo, usually, or outside of Palermo with Giuseppe. And we did that one under a tree at the Greek temple in Termini Merese. There's the Imera site, the ancient Greek town of Imera. We were at the Temple of Victory, and we did the cooking class under the tree. And there's an archaeological museum right there. So you could have been, hanging out in the archaeological museum while the cooking is going on.
Works for me.
Right. And then, one day for we do a Palermo food tour, and that is all eating, as well as seeing the markets of Palermo and the culture of Palermo. So that's, again, how food is woven into the day, but it's not all food, because we do see Monorail Cathedral and we see other things in Palermo. Then another day we go to a very small, tiny town. In the first thing in the morning, we go to a sheep farm and we watch them make ricotta. So we're tasting fresh ricotta out of the cauldron, and we're on the farm and we start picking tomatoes and fresh figs from the trees in the farm. And then we go into the town where the farm is, which is really a village, and we meet the butcher, and we made sausage with the butcher. He had us actually filling the casing in his butcher shop, which was like the coolest thing. And then we took that sausage and took the cheese from the farm and all the vegetables and the honey we bought from the farm, and we went into the forest and we had a barbecue with all that stuff. And then we went for a nature walk after we ate and had wine.
Yeah.
So that gives you an idea. We do a boat excursion that is just, the day is just spent on the water, enjoying, without, too much food going on. So there is a very nice mix. We see Valley of the Temples. We visit the windmills in Trapani. We have some time in Castellamare del Golfo walking around. So there's a really nice mix of culture.
The Valley of the Temples is Agrigento, is that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah. So you get to see a lot of things as well as the cooking. So
that's a 1 week long. That's 7 days or something.
Yeah, it's 8 days and 7 nights. Yeah. So the beauty of it is that it's not all cooking, actually. And I think that, you're not in a kitchen the whole time. Why would you want to do that?
I know. I know.
I know. Even cooks. Right. And we do spend also.
Even cooks want to go on vacation.
Even cooks want to not be cooking all the time. Right. And also we have the winery tour on that trip is we go to a newer winery run by 2 young people, they're brother and sister, and we actually get really into the winemaking process with them. And the week we're there is actually when the harvest is going on. So it's not like a beautiful winery where you're sitting around drinking wine and looking at the vineyards. No, you're actually in the cantina itself, watch and tasting the must, and you're seeing the machines and you're smelling all the, it's a real place. Yeah. So there's an intellectual aspect of that too. Yeah.
That's interesting. That would
be
a real plus too, because we like wine. And,
yes. So that's the beauty of it. It's at the very beginning of the trip. So you start to learn about Sicilian wines right at the beginning of the trip. And then the rest of the trip, as we travel around the island, I always pick wines according to the region where we are. That's something very important. Like if we're in Etna, we're going to drink wines from Etna. If we're in Trapani province, we're going to be drinking Marsala or Grillo or Insalia, the wines from that region. If we're in Ragusa, we're going to have Neradavla. We're not going to have something that's from Trapani even. So that's how micro I get in terms of even just at the table.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That one is in September.
That one is in September. That's actually filling up very fast, that tour. So I might end up adding another week of it the week before. So right now, if I look at my calendar here, it's I think it starts on September 28th, 2022. I might end up adding the week before, and it usually runs because of the way we want it to fall with how the activities go. It's a Wednesday or a Thursday to a Wednesday, and yes, it starts on a Wednesday and ends on a Wednesday. So we might end up adding another week, the 14th to the 21st of September. So certainly if that's a tour you're interested in, let me know, because that one's filling up very quickly. Who else has questions? Anything you want? Italian travel, Sicily, cannoli. How dishes are made. I might even be able to answer that. I'm quite, I cook a lot of Sicilian food just because that's what I like. So,
Allison, do you ever go to other parts of Italy?
I travel to other parts of Italy. Yes, I do. And I will also design, if you want to do a trip where you visit other parts of Italy with Sicily, I will also, and I can do that. In fact, I just got a request from someone I know who wants to just be in Italy next March, and she wants me to book her trip for just Italy, and I can do that for you too. I've traveled all over Italy, and I know Tuscany very well. I know Rome very well. I know Puglia. I know Campania and Naples pretty well. So yes, the next year or so, I don't have any trips where I've combined the two. In the past, I did a Naples 5 days in Naples area and Cilento and 5 days in Sicily. I'm not planning on doing that trip for a while still. Who knows if I'll bring something like that back in the future, but certainly if you wanted to, and even if you want to do a small group tour with me and you wanted to go to the Amalfi Coast for a few days before or after, we can help you book that as well and design that for you. So that's something to consider.
Well, you were saying there's a pre-tour before that experience, and I go like, so I'm looking forward to finding more about that.
Yes, right. So the Secret
Maybe
Sicily trip.
Things linking up with something else afterwards, or
Yes.
because maybe I should just take another tour with you where I get the broader, longer picture of things as well.
Right. And that's what with Secret Sicily, because we spend so much of the 10 days is really in Eastern Sicily and Agrigento. There's Palermo isn't included in that main 10-day itinerary. But last year, or I should say in 2019, I've lost 2020. In 2019, many of the people wanted to do a Palermo extension or pre-trip. So I did do that. And I will make it a formal thing. So what that means is this tour currently starts on July 15th. And what I will do, my plan is this, and so you can keep this in mind, Esther. My plan is to start where we meet on the night of the 13th of July in Palermo. We will have the whole day of the 14th and part of the day on the 15th in Palermo. So, and maybe I'll back it up. Maybe it will start on the 12th. I have to look at the schedule of what we would do, because it might be nice to have 2 full days in Palermo, because the 15th, we're really going to have to leave early in the day to get to Licodia e Eubea. And we would travel as a group. So we would all stay in the same hotel. It would just be like a 3-day mini tour and basically focused on Palermo. We would certainly do the street food tour of Palermo, Monorail Cathedral, and maybe a day in Cefalù, something like that. And then all of the transportation would be organized, and then the transfer, all of us together would travel from Palermo to Licodia and meet up with the rest of the group who's coming in just on the 15th. So, and the beauty of this too, okay, is that July 14th and 15th in Palermo is the Feast of Santa Rosalia. So their big festino, Il Festino, which is the Saint Rosalie, is their patron saint. They have a huge street fair and the procession of the carrozza down the Casale. So that's a whole experience to have on the 14th of July. So even more reason for us to meet on the 12th, the night of the 12th, to be the first day of that trip. So it'll be very cool to be in Palermo for that big feast. And so I'll schedule it so we have a little bit of that and we have other things as well. So keep that in mind. I wanted to get it up for today, but I got so carried away making the main presentation that finishing the itineraries fell off. But I'm hoping to finish everything the next week or so, because by June 1st, it all has to be up. So for sure. I hope that answers the question. So it'd be great. Yeah. I mean, I think you would, you're not the first person to ask me about that, doing that extension. So we'll do it.
Yeah, I'm retired, so I might as well spend the time.
Exactly. Exactly. And Palermo is really fascinating. It's where my family is. So I love it, particularly for that, but it's the Arab Norman patrimony and those UNESCO, it's 9 different sites that are part of that UNESCO site, let's say. It's really fascinating and the architecture is incredible. And then it's just a really neat city. So, and with the festino going on, there's a lot to experience there for sure.
And it sounds like you can go back more than once because there's so much to see.
There is so much to see. Sicily is just endless.
Mhm.
And that's why I really encourage people, if they say to me, oh, we have 3 days to go to Sicily. And I'm like, no, okay, well, pick one place and spend those 3 days there. Go to Palermo. Yeah, you could spend 3 days just in Palermo and really have an incredible trip. And if you wanted to spend one of those days on a beach somewhere, we could do a day trip, from Palermo. You have to think of Sicily as the size of Massachusetts. So, are you going to go, you think you're going to do Cape Cod and Lenox in the same 3 days? No, you don't want to do that. It's too much, especially driving. I mean, at least I-90 is a flat, straight road, right? Sicily does not have any flat, straight roads. So, you definitely want to plan more than, it's not one single island. It's really its own country in a way. So I really encourage people to think out of it like that. It needs more time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Esther. It's nice to meet you this way. And I look forward to hosting you on the Cannoli Crawl too. Anyone else? You've all been so wonderful and patient to hang out with me tonight. And Camilla and Carol, I will send you your books. I will be in touch with you by email to get your mailing addresses, and we'll get these out to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Allison, are you going to be able to post some dates for the other Cannoli crawls?
Yes, in the days ahead, I'm going to be posting the next round of dates. So it'll always be Saturdays. And I'll probably do one more in June and then probably 2 in July. And I'm hoping to be in Sicily in August. So we'll see. We'll see about that. All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dominique, for joining me. And do you accompany guests on all of your set tours? Yes, I do. I'm with you the whole time. When I am your tour leader, I'm with you the whole time. I mean, there's some days, nights where you're on your own, etc. But I am your host and your tour leader, so you'll be with me the whole time. Then those nights that I have off, I need a break too. But certainly, yeah. All right. So thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this evening. I appreciate you hanging out with me so long. And I hope to see you in person in Sicily. Let's say that. All right. So good night. I'm going to sign off. And of course, you can email me, call, and everything if you have more questions. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Grazie mille.
Prego. Ciao, ciao.